Jennifer, and this is a knitting podcast all about knitting, yarn adventures, and travel. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm so excited to be sharing that I'm featuring a regularly styled traditional knitting podcast coming at you with a blend of the finishing off of our travels. We had started in Rhinebeck, went through the United States East Coast up to Lunenburg in Nova Scotia, and we decided to go back through Canada, the Quebec route back home to Toronto. So this episode will feature Quebec City. Let's get started. I am not wearing knitwear today. I am wearing a velvet nod to my past shirt that I found at a thrift shop in Nova Scotia called Guy Frenchie's. This is a thrift shop that apparently is pretty popular out in Nova Scotia, and it's a really well-organized, tidy, clean thrift shop. And it's definitely hit and miss when you go in. I've been to a couple now. This one I went into was in Bridgewater, and it was great. It was super fun, had a lot of different interesting things, and I came out with this shirt. It is very kind of, I'd say nod to holiday-esque with the velvet, and oddly, this reminds me of a piece of furniture that I grew up with at my family's home. We had a blue velvet chair. It was like a low sitting chair with the covered buttons of velvet on it. And I just remember as a kid, it always was very sensory. I loved touching it. I loved feeling it on the arms and sitting in it, reading or playing. It was always a good time. This shirt reminds me of that chair. So I had to get it from Guy Frenchie's in Nova Scotia. Let's get into the knitting and the yarn adventures. So first off, we'll go over finished objects. We'll get into some whips, and then we will get into our Quebec trip. Let's do it all. So the only finished item that I have today are the Dainty Bubble Mittens. This pattern, which I will talk about in a second, the mittens at this point I have gifted to my mother already. So we'll be including some video and photo here for the mittens that I was able to gift her. But this was a super fun knit to do. This is a pattern, free pattern, mind you, that was designed by Tshep, kind of again like Madonna, all one name. And it is written for a chunkier gauge. I don't know the gauge offhand, but I used a really heavy Nova Scotian yarn. This I thought was an Aran weight, but actually looking at probably, the heaviness of it, I think in turn probably was a bulky weight. This was a blend. It didn't have a name. It was a yarn I bought on consignment through the Chocolate River Yarn Co. and Fiber from Sue. Super fantastic, and my mother's absolute favorite color of this 80s Delft blue. And it was a mix of two different sheep. It was a texel and a romney, I believe. It'll be my show notes. And I knit this using a US 8 needle on the main body and on the cables, which is a 5.0 millimeter needle. And on the ribbing, I went down one needle size, to a US 7 or a 4.5 millimeter needle. One day maybe I'll memorize these, but it's not happening today. This was, because it was a free pattern, there were no issues in the pattern per se, but it was written in a really kind of non-flowing way, at least the way that my brain works. First of all, there wasn't a chart, so if you're looking for charted work, this is not going to be your pattern friend. But the way that Tshep has written the pattern is almost in two chunks that you have to constantly refer to in the beginning of your mitt after the ribbing, and they are knit from the wrist up, if that makes sense, to the tip of the fingertips. After the ribbing, you knit stock knit on the palm side, but then on the face side of your hand, this is where the cabling goes. Everything's really well written to say, you know, where you're putting in your stitch marker to indicate your thumb gusset. But here's where it got a little wonky for me in my brain, is that there were two different sections of writing in the pattern that included the thumb gusset increases and a separate area for the knitting in the round with the cabling. So I found I had to kind of keep track, sometimes even on paper, which I normally never do, which row I was on, because it didn't correspond numerically always, like perfectly with like odds and evens, or row 1 of the cable was not equivalent to row 1 of the increases of the thumb gusset. For me, it was a little bit of a mind warp. For you, it might be totally okay. But again, free pattern. Can we complain about it? I'm providing feedback for if you're interested in knitting the pattern, and I just want to be honest with full disclosure. The other area, because my gauge obviously was way off, as I knew it would be, than the pattern, is the pattern had called for 2 rounds of basically, I would call it like the body of the cable. I knit 1 round, and again, my mom has, you know, small hands, that I knew knitting 2 rounds of this cable repeat would be way too big. So after knitting the 1 round, I started with the decrease, or they call it, it's like the decrease at the fingertips for the cable pattern, the cable motif, so it starts to cinch in. And instead of basically decreasing super rapidly, and then you do a bind off, I just did stock knit for a smidge. I think I did it for 3 additional rows just to bring the fingertip up. Also another and last mod I did, that's not true, I have another mod, but on the hand of the mitten per se was the bind off. The bind off had called for a Kitchener stitch, where you're knitting basically the front and the back of the stitches together to have a really nice seamless finish. However, for me, it was too angular. I wanted it to be a rounder finish to kind of complement the motif of the cable. And because I had done all these mods, it made more sense to me aesthetically. So I did, I think it was like 6 stitches? No, 12 stitches. And I just took the tapestry needle, I threaded through, and I cinched up at the top to pull it all together like a starfish. And that was it. I just reinforced it. So that's how I finished off the top of the fingers. The thumb, it tells you to pick up 3 stitches at the gusset, basically like almost the underarm, if you will, of the hand. And I had done that originally. I knit around as I suggested, but it was a chunker of the thumb. So I ripped it out, no big deal. And I still continued to pick up 3 stitches, but instead I did a decrease at either side of those 3 stitches. So I decreased. I left the 1 main stitch here and I knit up that way. So I did 2 less stitches on the thumb to get a more fitted thumb for the gauge I was doing. And that was it. I followed through with the same kind of bind off I did for the tip of the hand, where I just did, I think it was like 6 stitches there on the thumb and pulled through and reinforced the thumb. And those are the Dainty Bubble Mittens. I gave them as a present to my mother, along with her favorite bottle of Spanish cava. And another nod to Nova Scotia was a knitting basket. I use mine as a knitting basket, it's right here. But I gave her a rope basket. This is mine in the gorgeous coral, which is definitely one of my very favorite colors. Hers, and I took a photo, is in one of her favorite bright blues, and it's a repurposed fishing or lobster fishing rope from Nova Scotia, handcrafted by an artisan there, Nancy from Nautically Repurposed. Fantastic gift. I bought these at the Lunenburg Thursday Farmers Market, who are not there right now because they're in like winter season. She was there in the summer. fantastic little gift. Even with the Kava and the mittens, I was super jazzed, and everything was a little blue, which is her absolute favorite color. So that's a fun one. I also have to share about her birthday celebration. We ended up going to a restaurant. It's all of our favorite restaurants by her house in a village close by. And it's always super lovely. The service, the food is fantastic. And I wore the outfit that was voted on the most by our lovely viewers here. So thank you very much for, if you had to say which cinch or the cinch rug looked best with. I had 3 different outfits that I put together. It was the all over black outfit with the black shell and the pants, cinch rug. There was a second outfit that was a neutral, kind of like a pink neutral silk 3/4 shirt, black pants shrug, super cute. And then the last option was the pleated dress with the big like puff skirt component, tied up top, and the cinch shrug. And it was the dress that won hands down. Maybe it was the twirl, I don't know, but it was definitely my favorite too. And it was super fun to wear. I'll throw in some pictures here of the night. This was after we had come back home, because of course I was not organized to take photos before while the sun was somewhat up. And so this is post-dinner celebration, and maybe a couple cocktails and bubbly, but it was a great time celebrating my mother. So thank you for your input on that. With whips, here we go. We're gonna whip it up real good. In whip world, I have, in the brain hat, I'll go quick, obviously finished the skull cap a while back. I have finished all of the gray matter now. These are 2 components of gray matter. I just have to thread them or sew them onto the hat to create the brain. I'm feeling good with this whip, much better than I was before. And again, all details will be in my show notes for that, but you've seen it before. The next, I'm also feeling good about this whip. Like, look at me being responsible knitter. This is the Sweater Breaking the Sweater Curse. Hurrah! Okay, not done, obviously in the whip section, but check this out. What is that? Do we have a finished body? What? Okay, we have done the entire body of the Sweater Breaking the Sweater Curse, and I couldn't be more thrilled. I feel like it's not a secret, I lost my mojo for the Sweater Breaking the Sweater Curse, and she's back. She's back in a good way, and I'm so excited. So all I did is lots of trying on with the love of my life, because we want to make sure that the fit is good, and she is. We just did a 1x1 rip here, and it sits just below the belt line of his jeans. He is a little hottie in it. It is so good, and I'm so excited. I have started the sleeve, and this is all night knitting. So we're talking black yarn in the dark of Canada in the winter. But we're doing it. We're doing a US 8 needle that is done on the body, and now the sleeve, which is a 5.0 millimeter needle. So organized today. And I did picking up stitches. I did like 13 maybe. I probably should have them recorded because I have to do another sleeve. Oh wow, I hope I did. And I believe I knit together the 2 like extreme underarm stitches to kind of like bind up that little, which would be the hole. Oh, where is my note? This is like, okay, oh my God. I'm looking at my notes with the sweater for Sweater Breaking Sweater Curse, and I've got to say, I cast on August 6th. Like, a little embarrassing, maybe, not really, I don't know. I mean, this is nothing new for me. I'm used to it, maybe you're not, because we're still getting to know each other. So this is how we roll. Yeah, I'm just looking. Yeah, US 6 needle for the ribbing. I looked at this because I wanted to see if I included the stitches, and I did. The pickups. I picked up 11 stitches at the underarm. I reduced 2 stitches at either side for a total of 9 gorgeous armpit stitches. That is what we did. So she's here. And these little guys here, can we see the little like hangy light bulb stitch marker from Leslie, friend of a friend to knit with, so thank you. This is indicating a decrease, of course, so I'm decreasing 2 stitches at a time, and I haven't, we're freestyling, like we're free flowing, so I think maybe we'll do another decrease soon again, but you know, busting my lid knitting, so we will get there, and I will have the Love My Life try it on again as we go to make sure that the sleeve is just, you know, perfection. And I didn't even say, so the pattern design is no design, I'm just free flowing. The thing that I'm really happy about, and it's not like anything like super genius or new, is the increases of the raglan. I did a lifted increase on either side of the raglan. I'm doing 2 stitches on the raglan, and I did it because I didn't want holes between the increases where the raglan stitch would sit and then the rest of the fabric. And I've got to say, it's perfect. It's exactly what I had wanted, like pictured in my head and envisioned. So jazz for that. The sheep, it's kind of like, it smells like a sheep. This is the yarn. It's the Black Sheep's yarn. Oh God, I've said this a million times. It is the Dooryard yarn from Cashmere Goat in Camden, Maine. Thank you. This is super rustic, super woolly. It's a high grease factor, a lot of spinning oils on it, and note to self, I have to wash my hands before I touch my face because I feel like I've broken out from it. And I wondered, I'm like, ooh, we're going through hormonal breakouts, what's going on? I think it might have been from all the spinning oils and stuff on this gorgeous yarn. So I'm just being very careful now to wash my hands anytime I'm thinking I'm going to consume food or touch my little precious, but like very sensitive face. So that is the yarn, and I'm loving it. I've already knit a sweater in this for myself. I knit the Felix pullover. Savory knitting, awesome, awesome. I do want to say I totally overestimated on yarn. I think I have like 4 skeins left, and this is one of them. I'm winding another ball for the second sleeve. I'm gonna have 2 left over for shizzle. A little overestimated, but I'd rather have more than not enough, maybe. Anyway, so I was making the soda curse. Baby babadi. We were feeling good with the whips until this one. So this was just a smidge of a cast on before. This is the beginnings, and she's falling off the needle. Not that it matters, and you'll see why in a second. This is the beginning of a champagne cardigan. Goes like this. I'll show you from here. This is a pattern design by Petite Knit. It is a very famous, I should say popular cardigan pattern, and took over a lot of podcasters' channels this fall. I'm on the boat, I'm there. It's a gorgeous style. It's my first time doing a cardigan, which I'm super jazzed about. Gauge is way off. This I'm knitting with Peace Fleece. This color is just divine. It is a Sakhalin Salmon. I bought this at Harrisville Design in New Hampshire? Yep, somewhere in New Hampshire. I forget the exact location, in the United States, and is fantastic. It is a yarn that is a mix of wool, does it say? Not on here, but it is a mix of wool and mohair. So it's kind of that nice combo where you don't have to pair 2 different yarns together. It's a one-stop shop. Like, that is my jam. One-stop shop girl. This cardigan, and not that you don't know this, is a v-neck cardigan with little like cute buttons. Buttons are hiding somewhere for me, but don't worry, it's gonna be a while for the buttons, so I don't even need to show those. Here's the kicker, because the gauge is off. I am knitting, I wrote it down, I'm trying to be somewhat responsible knitter. Dainty Mittens, no champagne cardigan. Here we go. The gauge it calls for in the pattern is 15 stitches by, I believe, 28 rows for 10 by 10 centimeters. Sweet. In my brain, I'm like, it doesn't matter. I was initially getting on my gauge swatch 15 centimeters. Didn't even do the row gauge because, like, I never do. Did I say responsible knitter? Jokes. So then I started knitting on this. I was pretty much done. I think the increases at the raglan stitches to move on to the next kind of section of the pattern. I measured here. It still was, this is like kind of what set off all the alarm bells in my brain. This alone, this is from like the neckline to the back of the armpit. Usually for me, I'm looking about a 20-ish centimeters. We're sitting at 26 already. This isn't even completed by the pattern. They still have you do, I think it's like, I don't know, like 8 more rows with specific increases that are happening. I can't go into it because it's paid for pattern. So I'm like, geez Louise, what am I gonna do? So I remeasured gauge. I know there's a lot of numbers, but that's knitting. I'm looking at 16 stitches by 22 centimeters, or sorry, 22 stitches per 10 centimeters. We are off in rows. We are off in stitch count to not meet gauge. We are not winning on the gauge thing. I think I'm gonna rip out. I think I'm gonna rip out everything. I can do it. It's really not a big deal. I mean, I've ripped out way more in other sweaters before. And here's what I'm doing. I think this is where my mind is going, which I've done many other times too. I'm recalculating the entire pattern. I know, like, come on, Jennifer. So what I've done is I've taken the stitch counts that the pattern calls for. I've taken my stitch count of my actual gauge. 16 divided by the 18 that pattern calls for, I'm looking at about an 88% difference, 89% difference, which means my cast on immediately would be less. I think I can calculate the rest fairly easily. It is raglan. Again, I've never done a cardigan. How hard can it be? Famous last words. So here's the thing. I would cast on 6 less stitches from the beginning. Is it worth it? Can you, like, help? I need feedback. 6 less stitches from the initial cast on, and you're casting on here at the back of the neck. Will it make all the difference? Because this is ginormous. Is it worth it? I don't want to swim in it, but I also, do I want to rip this out for 6? It's significant, isn't it? Okay, let me know in the comments, and then we might face ripping it out. We might, yes, I think that's where I have to go. I think I have to rip out, because this is it. Every time in my brain I don't rip out, I get further, and then it's like, I should have ripped out. So then I'm ripping out a lot more work than if I had just gone with my gut. And let's face it, numbers, because math and numbers don't lie. Okay, that's the champagne cardigan. Those are my whips that are getting attention, and I'm excited to say that I'm feeling excited about them again. So this is good. I'm also telling myself to be limited to these whips. I have many other whips in the background over there, but they're hiding for different reasons. So we're not even gonna get into those. I should do a whole episode just on my whips. Oh, we could be there for a while. What I'm gonna get into now is Quebec. So let's do this. I'm really excited to share with you about the trip. Finishing off our yarn trip 2.0. I do have to say that I feel so lucky to have started out in Rhinebeck, and I was away up until just like last week and got home. So I feel like I was able to kind of like tease out that gorgeous experience with the knitting community that kept going into, you know, perpetual amazingness of all the yarny goodness. So we had finished off our time in Lunenburg, which was fantastic. I mean, I don't have enough good things to say about that. The Love of My Life was working quite a bit virtually, so I found myself, and I'm an independent kitten, so we're pretty good, in town a lot, doing my own thing, walking around, going to the coffee shops. I also joined the gym in Lunenburg, and it was a great time. The age was definitely very much spanned compared to downtown. Downtown Toronto, I'm the senior in the classes, and I have to say in Lunenburg I was not the senior in the classes, so different levels of fitness, but it was awesome. Had a great time. I met the loveliest humans. It was awesome, so good. I do have to say that the classes weren't that challenging, and I'm not surprised because they are working to the abilities of the average person that was going, and it was woman heavy going to these classes, and that's cool. The instructor of one of the classes I attended, she was spicy and great. We had chatted after. It was a step class, and I hadn't done step in years. It was so fun, and we went out for coffee after. She was awesome. We went to a few classes afterwards. After that, had coffee, got to know each other and chatted. I really felt a connection with her. It was so nice. So that was kind of like the wrap up of Lunenburg, was just this like really nice connection I made with just another like awesome human. It was such a pleasure. So good. We had decided to come back through Canada, which meant going through Quebec. So we went, I believe, straight. Is that true? No, we stopped off at Fredericton, if I'm not mistaken, for one night between Lunenburg. It's a bit of a haul. And we ended up finishing in Quebec City. We were there for two days, and it was awesome. Every time we're in Quebec City, it's freezing cold, there's a blizzard, doesn't even matter the time of year it seems, and that's exactly what it was. We showed up, crossed over the bridge, and just spectacular delight of old Quebec. It was chilly but sunny, so that was cool. We were ready for, melting cheesy moments with poutine and everything else. And yeah, thank gosh we needed it because it blizzarded the next day. So we did a little walk around the old city of Quebec, or Vieux Québec. It's kind of divided into two if you haven't been. The big city, the newer component, still isn't that new. If you walk around Quebec City in general, there are beautiful like stone buildings of all sorts, residential and bigger common buildings, but as soon as you go through the walls or the fortification that had been built years ago in the beginning of Quebec City and the début du Canada, this is old Quebec, Vieux Québec, and it is where it's a UNESCO heritage site with the original buildings. These are stone buildings, cut stone, uncut stone, prepared into dwellings where the beginnings of our country and Canada had started. Pretty amazing. We didn't do any tours this time, but last time we had, and learned about the beginning and bit of history of Quebec then. In old Quebec as well, with the stone buildings, there's also the cobblestone streets. So it's a nod to Europe. People have been known for saying that old Quebec, as well, subsection of old Montreal, definitely has that initial feel of Europe or European culture. And it does. Even though this is a province that neighbors Ontario, it's quite different from where we live in every way, not only weather, but in the buildings. They're so aesthetically pleasing there. It's gorgeous. And of course, you are going on to the Fleuve Saint Laurent, which is the St. Lawrence River, a massive, bustling river that is coming from the Atlantic Ocean down. And this was the reason why Quebec City started, really the beginnings of Canada, because of that river river and the easier transport of goods and people. The full day that we were there, the love of my life had work most of the day, so he did that and I did my exploration. I saw that it was going to be snowing and chilly. But of course, you know, Toronto City girl, I'll be fine. I'll figure it out. I went on a run in the morning and geared up. And I have to say, running down, I followed the river line in one direction. It was chilly, but not insane. Coming back was frigid, very cold. Quads, couldn't feel them anymore. So I geared up. I geared up in all of my woolly bits to head out for the day, and I'm so glad I did. They called for snow in the morning and it didn't come right away, but there were ominous clouds brewing and she came. I had a mission. I was heading out. I had started at a cafe that I need not name because it wasn't fabulous, but the new experience was, and I knit in the window overlooking a common square. It has the Notre Dame Victoire, which is the original church, Catholic church in the area, and it's just stunning. I walked from there all the way out through the fortification, which I've never done before, out from the old city into the newer, because I was on a mission to a yarn shop. This was the second yarn shop that I had on my list. The first was in the old city, but sadly wasn't a knit shop at all for what I was looking at. It was already garments that were prepared. I was looking for yarn, of course, so I continued on. And as I got through the walls, it seemed, of the old city, this is when the blizzard picked up. You'll see in my video. Okay, we are still en route to the yarn shop just outside of the old city walls, and it's just beautiful. Original parts of Canada, how our country started, the beginnings, the interesting and beautiful architecture of buildings, the walls, stone. When my love and I had come to Quebec City the last time, which was during pandemic-esque time, it was one of the openings. And we thought, okay, we're gonna give it a whirl, do a little travel, but nothing crazy, not on airplanes, that's unsafe. So we ended up doing a driving trip to Quebec City. Obviously had a wonderful time with the people, the food, the views. We did a walking tour, and on the walking tour, which was us and I think like two other couples, very quiet, we learned about the different stone that's used in the buildings here. We were told that if the stone is rustic looking, in other words, kind of, you know, still in the stone mosaic, uncut version, that these are traditional French buildings. If they are cut stone, in other words, you know, the 90-degree angle, that was an English building. So I'm not 100% sure if this is true. I have been seeing mixes of stone buildings around, but even here, if you look, and again, I'm not sure, we've got more stony-esque, so French influence. These are the walls of the old city. And then over here, if we check this guy out, we're looking at cut stone, maybe English influence building. I'm not sure. I'm just going by what our walking tour guide had said. I'm walking through the walls now, which is really cool. I've only driven through them before. And we are officially out of old Quebec City. Into the new, I suppose. So here we are. All right, pressing on. Yarn shopping ahead. Out of the city walls, they have the Parliament building. Beautiful stone structure. It has plaques to show a memory of the fondateurs, the founders of Canada, which is really cool. But it became freezing and the snow was flying all of a sudden. And this is a part of Canada. She's a chilly one. I pressed on from there in the blizzard, mind you, at this point. And I made my way up and down hills. I don't know how people get around without proper traction on their shoes. At one point, there was a hill on a big angle. They had a bar, like a railing. I had to take the railing and walk down. And I thought, why am I doing this? This is crazy. So eventually I got to, and safely to, the yarn shop. This yarn shop is called the Cœur de Maille. This is the heart of stitches, or the stitches heart, it might translate to. And this was a very cozy yarn shop in Quebec City that had a gorgeous sitting area for knitters to enjoy their knitting and chat and overlook other beautiful stone structures that are just outside of the knit shop. Their options of yarny goodness was, of course, gorgeous to look at, squeeze and smell. They had everything from, again, popular yarns that we all know to, you know, very interesting Quebecois yarn to them. And super friendly, of course. I enjoyed their setup. They had beautiful samples and a lot of knit books, magazines. So I actually found myself going through a lot of them because it's not something I normally am attracted to or seek out. But it was a good little mix of everything for sure. They did have cones, yarn cones. So that was the first thing that lured me in, were all the delicious yarn cones. So they had Holt's, like super soft. They had Holt's Coast, but then they also had Quebec brands as well that I thought were pretty interesting. Very rustic, of course, because I mean, these are sheep that are surviving in the Quebec freezing cold climates. But I felt like even the presentation of all of the yarny objects were just gorgeous. I delivered local yarns to them, Quebecois yarn, and one of the yarns that I really enjoyed, they had skeined up and coned. This was called the Frisian de Berger, which Berger is a shepherd, so it means shivering shepherd, which I thought was really cute. Very rustic yarn. They had some combos that were yarn like sheep's wool and nylon, so tougher for socks and things. And then they had some all wool, wool only, natural components. I didn't buy anything at this point. This was my very last yarn shop that I was visiting. And I had so much, not guilt, but I tried to restrain myself because I do know of all the gorgeous yarn that I already have on hand, and I'm happily excited to knit on with that. So that was a lovely time and definitely warmed up at the Cœur de Maille with the lovely ladies there. From there, I met up with the love of my life, and I was freezing. It was a 45-minute walk from our hotel in the Old City to the yarn shop. Again, of course, 45 minutes back. So we ended up going into, or back into the Old City past the fortification, and went to the Aux Anciens Canadiens, which is a traditional Quebecois eatery featuring Quebec food. If you are into cheese, maple syrupy items, this would be your place. I had not Quebecois, but French nod, a French onion soup, which was great, and a nice glass of wine that warmed me, which was great. We since then had poutine as well at 3 locations for other comparative experiences. And I have to say, French poutine, Quebec poutine, anywhere is a dream. If you have not had poutine, it is gorgeous French fries, cooked until golden with a very deep, rich, dark gravy poured on top of fresh cheese curds. So that hot gravy melts that cheese curdy bit and you are getting a savory delight every time. Super fatty, super delicious, and warming, because you want the gravy and the hot cheese curds to burn the mouth, and it does. It's awesome. Love it. Burn the mouth, please, especially after the blizzard. We ended up walking around the rest of old Quebec, and after we got a little warm, of course, from our delicious warmed cheese items, and they had started setting up for the holidays. They had Christmassy items up. They were doing trees and lights. They had a sleigh. I mean, it was beginning and looking a lot like the holidays. So it got me jazzed for coming back. We ended up going right from Quebec City, and we did pretty much a solid drive home. We were thinking of stopping off in between, but we felt good in continuing on. I did a mix of knitting and reading aloud to the love of my life in the car to help us get home and be entertained and pass the time. And we made it pretty much in one shot. We stopped off, of course, for breaks and eating, but that was it. We did it. And now we're back. We're back in Toronto. And it's good. It's nice to be back. It's been lovely seeing friends again here, which is always lovely to come home to. And knitting here. I've got some knitting things lined up, different things that I'm going to be attending. And that's exciting. We are looking at more travels in the future. And until we solidify all of that, looking forward to this, to sharing with you, to getting through whips and enjoying all of it. So I want to also just share in the end that if you have not joined yet the Holiday Shrug Club KAL, I am reminding you in the nicest fashion, if you wish to participate, you can start at any time. We are running the Holiday Shrug Club KAL, which features one of the 4 or more shrugs that are designed by Jackie Rose. There are 2 prizes involved if you wish to tag Holiday Shrug Club KAL into Instagram on a reel or a post for your chance to win one of 2 prizes. The first being a $50 gift certificate from the Knitting Loft, and the second would be your pattern, your copy of pattern from Jackie Rose of the SoHo Square. Hope you join along. We've been having fun already, and it makes a great gift for yourself or for others. So thank you so much for joining me today. Really enjoyed putting all this together. And of course, I love that you're joining us for the travels. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe if you are so willing. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. And otherwise, we will see you next time. Thank you.